Hi everyone, my name is Sarah, and today I wanted to take some time to talk to you about grit. But in order to make this experience more interactive, I just want to draw your attention to the grit scale quiz linked in the description below. We will be using the quiz later on, just so you know where to find it later. And so I think grit is really relevant now more than ever. And if you don't know what grit exactly is, don't worry, I didn't either. But over time, I really learned the importance of grit, and I think it's best explained by your passion and your willingness to persevere through all situations. And so I actually wanted to start off by watching a TED Talk, which really explains what grit is and how it's relevant to our lives. So I'm just going to share my screen here.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs? Who's going to earn the most money? In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure. Things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, It's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
All right, so welcome back. I hope you took a lot away from that video. I definitely took a lot away from that video. I think it's super helpful in explaining what grit really is. So now if you're curious to see how gritty you are, I ask that you pull up the grit scale quiz, which is found in the description below, and it should look something like this. I will share my screen and show you what it should look like. So it should look like this. So pause the video, take some time to fill this out, and once you're done, come back so we can talk about what these numbers all mean. Okay, so I hope you took some time to complete that quiz, and really, I hope it helped you see, are you, doing well on the scale in terms of passion, perseverance, maybe grit overall, and it really helps you see, where you may be struggling and where you may be lacking. So just to maybe end off this discussion, to leave something, to leave you all with something a bit more tangible, I just want to, give some 5 tips on how to increase your grittiness or how to grow your grit. So I'm just going to share my PowerPoint here. So how to grow your grit? The first one I would suggest is to pursue your interests. So, you're going to have a hard time sticking to your goals that don't really interest you. But that doesn't mean sitting around and think about what your passion is. According to Angela Duckworth, it is much more efficient to actually get out there and try new things until you've actually found something that you're passionate about. Number 2, I would say practice, practice, practice. We all learn since we've been growing up that hard work, leads to competence, and we are much more likely to stick to things that we're good at. But grittier people, they always want to improve no matter what it takes or how good they already are at something. So if you found your interest, put in the work to get a little bit better every day. This could look a little something like, working slightly harder during your workout, or sticking to a boring task even though you don't want to do it, or trying a math problem one more time. So think about your challenges as mental resistance training. Number 3, try to connect to a higher purpose. This one, it's really important to help increase your grit. because it's something that's more about other people than it is just about yourself. So what are you doing to contribute or to benefit other people as well? Cultivate a sense of hope. So if you want to reach your goals, you first need to believe that it is actually possible. And like we learned in that TED Talk, cultivating a growth mindset, understanding that you have the ability to accomplish your goals. Um, Sorry about that. Yeah. So you have the ability to accomplish your goals um, if you work hard at it, because our brain is plastic. So if you work hard at it, you can do it. And lastly, here, surround yourself with gritty people. So the people around you obviously have a huge influence on your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And so when you spend time with a particular group of people, the way they do things sort of becomes the way that you do things. And their norms and their values will eventually rub off on you. So surround yourself with gritty people, and it's only a matter of time before you become gritty yourself. So just to end off, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And of course, if you like this conversation and want to continue this conversation, there's a link down below for coffee chats where you're able to connect with other people and talk about grit. So I hope you enjoyed and I hope you took a lot away. And thanks for tuning in. Bye, everyone.